not have the ability to put back together.
Greg Doucette, who is a two-faced, lying sociopath sucker. If I see him in real life, I might take something from him medical science can't give him back. Thank you, Greg.
Keep those things to yourself. And so just because people say to be yourself when talking to girls doesn't mean you show them your worst self. Does that make sense?
And the thing about this advice of, well, just be yourself, is that it's almost always very well meant and has massive grains of truth to it. But is it the best advice?
And so, for example, I'm going to read one comment, part of it, what was written about Mike Isertel on my latest video from him. And so this is the kind of thing you probably wouldn't want to share to that girl that you're going to be rizzing up. He has a crippling inferiority complex, and everything he does is for the deliberate purpose of overcompensating for that fact. His sense of inferiority causes him to be filled with self-loathing. He has a diagnosable personality disorder or disorders. If he isn't being monitored and treated by both a psychiatrist and a psychologist, he certainly should be. And so if that is yourself, that is your true, authentic self, you don't need to go up to somebody and share all those details. That is not your best self. The fact that you're working on yourself in counseling, or that you should be, that you're going through a bunch of issues, traumas from past childhood experiences, these are not things you have to share to your partner. You can just talk about the weather. This final point is less observational and admittedly pure speculative. But it isn't possible he might be a latent homosexual. He seems almost cartoonishly desperate to present as a hyper-masculine alpha, and so the hypothetical fact that he's gay fills him with rage and self-loathing.
Like all I feel is rage. Thank you, Greg.
And so some things are better left unsaid. If it is in fact part of you, you don't have to go and tell that person on the first date.
You gotta optimize your physical appearance and presentation. But once you're dating a guy, or once you're on multiple dates, or once you're chatting and vibing, then it's important for you to have those secondary qualities of attraction. At that point, I mean, of much deeper value. Are you intelligent? Do you have a sense of humor? Do you have cool values? Are you actually a decent person?
As Mike says, what matters first and foremost is obviously the physical. When you first go and talk to somebody, you have to look good. You have to be physically attractive to have that person have a general sexual desire for you upon looking at you. And so if you're overweight and or obese, lose the weight. You really think you're going to get a high value woman, the top quality woman, when you can't even demonstrate that you can take care of yourself? I mean, really think about it. Why would they want to date you if you can't even groom your body to dress nice, to have a career, some money? And yeah, it's not politically correct to say this, but it's true. If you're 100 pounds overweight, it demonstrates, in fact, shows and proves that you're lazy. You could lose the weight if you wanted it bad enough, but you don't. And so what that signals to a female is, you ain't got your shit together. You might have a lot of money, sure. You might work hard at work, give you that. But you don't work hard on your body. What do you think matters most in this world? To be a billionaire or to be healthy? Choose one. Because if you're choosing money over health, you would trade every last dollar that you've made to get your health back when you're getting close to the grave.
Girls generally look for you to be taller than average, though if you have enough riz, that also doesn't fucking matter. And they're generally looking for you to look not like Harry Potter age, but like a man.
And so Mike says, look, this is what some of the girls are looking for. Obviously, they like you to be attractive. And one thing they would like is for you to be taller than them, to be above average in height. And so if you're not all these things, you can't do anything about it. I'm a 5'6" manlet. I can't just grow taller. If I were 100 pounds overweight, I could put the fork down, I could go for a walk, but I can't get taller. But if you're a man, you could probably wear taller shoes. Shoes with some heel slips. Maximize your riz, how you're dressed, how you appear. Get a decent physique. And when you're talking to a girl, I'm telling you, it's better to be polarizing. And so despite the fact that Mike says some stupid ass shit, I actually like it. I think it can work. And so, for example, in his last video on YouTube, you guys think I don't do research for these videos? Oh, Coach Ray just sits in front of a camera. And so he's talking to a lady about 40 years of age in the gym. Perfect place for a guy like Mike to be rizzing on a lady.
We heard this is your element.
You forget, I'm almost 40. I'm not trying to impress anybody anymore.
Shut up, dude. Lateral raises. Slow. Very good. Keep going. We want more.
Go on.
We want more.
And so the number one comment on that video, Dr. Mike courting a woman. shut up and do lateral raises. And so it's no cap. And so you might be thinking, well, why would you say shut up and do lateral raises? We want more. That's not how you should talk to a lady. You should be speaking nicely. You should be saying everything to suck up to her. You're so gorgeous. You're so amazing. I can't believe I'm talking to you. That's the worst thing you could ever do. You have to act like you could give two shits about her. That you just banged 3 escorts and that they paid you to have sex with them. That's how hot that you are. You're the guy that all men want to be and all women want to be with, and they are. You have an abundance mentality, abundance lifestyle. If this girl doesn't like you, that's okay. I just had 3. And tomorrow I'll have 3 more. They are so easy to come by because I am a high-value man. As Rich Piana once said, 5%er. Top 5% of men, they get all the girls.
About 5% mentality.
Thank you, Greg.
Listen, I don't make the rules, I just follow them. And so Mike Israetel is actually based. Saying to a girl, shut up and do the side laterals, that is very polarizing. Some women are going to be like, ew, I can't believe a man talked to a woman like that. See ya? Why would you want to try and win her over? If she says or even thinks something like that, this is not a woman that you want to court, you want to be with. This is a woman for the streets. Get rid of her. And so, if she's going to act like that and show disinterest in you, or be neutral about you, then why would you want to bother? I'd rather piss her off and have her say, look, you're an asshole. You're a short little manlet. No girl would ever want to be with you. And then she leaves. Good, I didn't waste any more time with her. Think of it. You're at the bar, and you've got, 3 hours to talk to girls. Do you want to waste 3 hours talking to a girl that's not even interested in you? Or find out within 5 minutes, there ain't no chemistry going on here. There ain't no vibe. Move on to the next one. And so you could say the same stupid, dumb-ass joke, the kinds that Mike Israetel says all of the time. Perhaps 1 out of 10, maybe 1 out of 100. Eventually, they're going to like that. That is the girl that you go after. And so Mike Israetel could be talking to a girl. He could say something like this. You know what is really important for women to attract men? These are the top muscles to attract men. It's from a video. The girls should have big, meaty traps that a vampire could stick their teeth into. Big, meaty traps. Also, you need to have big calves. Very important. But never have abs. Abs, they're not important.
Gently tilt your head to the side.
Okay.
Gently have my arm around your waist.
Oh my
Absolutely not
god.
gently at all. Sink my teeth directly into your fucking trap. Thank you, Greg.
You might be thinking, this is a stupid conversation to bring up to a lady. Why would you say these things? Bro is describing what most men would look like if they're on steroids. But if that's what he likes, then why not be polarized? Eventually he's going to come across a girl who's got big traps, has no abs in sight, and had big calves. She's perhaps loving this. Finally, a guy that appreciates for me. All the other men out there, they like what Coach Greg likes. The glutes, the thighs, the small, tiny waist, the flat stomach. But not this Mike guy, and so she's interested. She perhaps wants to get with this guy. And so why not find out early on? Rather than just saying what you think they want to hear. Oh, it's what's on the inside that counts. Shut up. Everyone knows it's not just what's on the inside that counts. When you meet someone, it's clearly what's on the outside that counts. And perhaps what's on the inside of her panties later that night, but that is the honest truth. If you're trying to rizz up a girl and get to know her, talk to her, see if she wants to sleep with you, you can't just be yapping and glazing her up. You need to be polarizing. And so that is one thing that I am. When I make videos, I'm very polarizing. You either hate me or you like me. Usually, it's not somewhere in between. People either want to watch Coach Greg or they don't. And by all means, so be it. I don't care. Oh, I can't believe Coach Greg said it's what's on the outside that counts. I can't believe he said that joke. I can't believe he called somebody 100 pounds overweight lazy. Yep, I did. Are you? If you don't like it, go over there. And so that is what you want to do when you're talking to a girl. You be polarizing while being yourself. You don't make shit up. You don't say, if you're 100 pounds overweight, then I think that you're fat and lazy. If you don't believe that, You tell them the truth. When I speak, I'm being honest. I'm telling you what I think. If you don't like it, there is the door. That is how you want to talk to a lady. If she doesn't like it, the door is right there. You don't need to keep talking to me. Somebody else will talk to me. And eventually, you'll talk to some baddie that likes you for you.
Like you have a super awesome fit body. That definitely helps, but it's just helping a little.
Mike, it helps you a lot. Listen, women want to get with the top, let's call it 20% of men maximum. They are getting almost all of the girls. And so when you have a body like Mike Thurston, you can get away with a lot. It's not helping Mike Thurston a little bit. And so of three main things, you need to be good at two of them. You need to be attractive, you need to have money, and you need to have riz. If you've got 2 out of 3, you can get a girl.
Let's go.
Going somewhere?
Round 1. Fight. Round 2. Fight. しないし。Get ready for the next battle.
Crazy.
The number one best potassium-rich food on planet Earth is something I'm going to tell you in just a minute, but I first wanted to cover what not to consume as far as foods, which are considered high potassium foods. We have bananas, potatoes, plantains, which by the way have more potassium than bananas, beans, and sweet potatoes. Every one of these standard recommended foods for increasing your potassium is a starch, which means they have a lot of sugar. I mean, bananas have like 27 grams of sugar. So starch is a hidden sugar. No one's going to eat a raw potato, so they're going to cook it. So you're basically eating something that's going to turn into sugar very quickly. So yes, they are loaded with potassium, but they're also loaded with a lot of sugar. Now, these are loaded with fiber, but they also contain starch, and they do create bloating for a lot of people. Some people can consume them, but some people can't. I can't eat beans without getting severe bloating. But there's certain beans that are better than others, but typically beans do raise the insulin level. And that's why I put it on the no list. But the number one food for potassium is this right here.
Avocado.
Avocado. One avocado has about 700 milligrams of potassium. Zero starch. That means zero blood sugar spike. Zero net carbs. Super healthy fats, which slow the digestion, allowing you to absorb more potassium. And avocados also are loaded with magnesium that works with potassium and allows potassium to work in your body. As compared to eating banana, the digestion is very, very quick. So you're going to get this massive blood sugar spike, and then you're going to be hungry for another banana in about 20 minutes. But not with avocados. Avocados are super satisfying. They also have a lot of other nutrition, including vitamins and certain minerals. And I eat a lot of avocados with my eggs, meat. I put it on my salad. So a lot of people ask me, what supplements do I recommend? Now, of course, I'm not biased in my own high-quality supplement line, but if you go to Amazon and type Dr. Berg supplements, you'll find more information. Now, this next one is very surprising. Wild salmon has 970 milligrams of potassium. And I'm talking about like a half a fillet, but make sure it's wild caught, not farm raised. Salmon has zero carbohydrates. It has a good amount of magnesium, and it's loaded with omega-3 fatty acids. And what you're going to find on this list right here is the common theme is that the foods that are loaded with potassium are also loaded with magnesium, so you can kill two birds with one stone, especially since you need magnesium for potassium to work in the body. Now, let's talk about leafy greens. These three leafy greens have the most potassium. Swiss chard has 1,000 milligrams of potassium per cup. Beet tops have 1,300 milligrams of potassium. Spinach has 840 milligrams of potassium. Now, the way that I recommend cooking this is not to boil them, because potassium is water soluble. It's going to actually leach out, go into the water, and deplete your food of potassium. So I would recommend sauteing them or steaming them. Or if you're going to boil them, just slightly boil them, not too much. The carbohydrates are super low because they're very high in fiber, but they have good nutrients in them, especially potassium and magnesium, and also vitamin K1. One little point about spinach is if you cook spinach, you get 840 milligrams of potassium versus raw spinach, it actually is lower. So you do want to saute spinach as well as these other vegetables. Now, I know some of you are sitting there going, wait a second, you're just telling me to eat 3 vegetables that are very high in oxalates. And for some reason, people just don't want to get kidney stones. An oxalate is something that combines with calcium, and that can form stones. It can irritate the body. Well, there's some additional data I want to share with you. Number one, if you consume calcium while you're eating this, aka cheese, you will dramatically reduce the amount of oxalates that are going to irritate things, because they'll bind in your intestine with the calcium and then go through the intestine and not be reabsorbed and end up in your kidney. But the other big thing is that all of these right here are loaded with magnesium. Magnesium greatly helps reduce the formation of kidney stones. In fact, in a lot of research I've done, and I've done videos on this, magnesium is the antidote to preventing kidney stones. I recommend adding magnesium to the diet on a regular basis, especially if you consume these, and that way you can prevent the formation of kidney stones. And also, if you consume 2.5 liters of fluid every single day, the odds of you getting kidney stones are much less than winning the lottery, because a kidney stone is a super concentrated oxalate calcium stone, and if you're drinking enough fluid, it'll never form. And of course, I'm not telling you to consume massive amounts of this, but these are good sources of potassium and magnesium. Now, there's some other foods that actually are really surprising. Portobello mushrooms have 530 milligrams of potassium. And I'm talking about just 1 cup. So you can saute them with some butter and some sea salt. Quite delicious. Another very surprising source of potassium is tomato paste. So in certain dishes that you use, 2 tablespoons tomato paste gives you 400 milligrams of potassium. And then, of course, cream of tartar, which is actually a form of potassium. It's potassium bitartrate. You probably have it in your cupboard right now, but cream of tartar is potassium, and you can use that in various recipes as well. And just like a half a teaspoon is 250 milligrams. I mean, some people even dissolve a little bit in some water and drink it as a potassium supplement, especially if they're on a ketogenic diet. So now that you know what you should be eating to increase potassium, the next vital thing you need to know is how to get more magnesium, because potassium cannot work in the body without magnesium. And for that information, you need to watch this video right here. Check it out.
It's all about the teeth, man. It's all about the teeth. Okay, kid. Why do something? My atmosphere. You want some of this too? I was watching your techniques. I was just watching your techniques, trying to learn. You strong enough. You strong. Like, but you know it. Open the door. It's all about the teeth, man. It's all about the teeth. Okay, kid. Why do something? My atmosphere. You want some of this too? I was watching your techniques. I was just watching your techniques, trying to learn. You strong enough. You strong. Like, but you know it. Open the door. It's all
been wanting to talk about this one for a while, just it hasn't worked itself into the rotation, and that's potassium. It's one of the few nutrients that taking supplemental potassium is not really super effective, and we'll talk about why. Stay with me. But this mineral, which is in one of the key essential electrolytes, potassium has a lot of really critical key roles, but it's oftentimes ignored because, again, it's ignored by a lot of functional doctors because there's really no great supplement for potassium. And a lot of doctors, if you can't give it in a supplement, they are not really interested in talking about it, or they lose focus or attention on it. And most medical doctors don't get enough or adequate nutritional training to really understand it very well or to understand the symptoms associated with it. And so it oftentimes largely goes ignored. Now, one of the other reasons why is that most of the time when you go to the doctor, they'll do a test called a chem panel or a chemistry panel. And this chemistry panel usually it will measure your potassium levels. But your blood levels or your serum levels of potassium, remember, potassium works in the blood, but it also works in the cell, it works in the nerve, it works intracellularly. So the best way to really measure potassium is not in the blood. And the reason why is your body does a really good job of keeping those levels pretty constant. And that, just depending on which lab, the range is, anywhere from 3.5 to about what's happening here? It's about 5. 5.2, 5.3, somewhere in that neighborhood. So again, depending on the lab, the reference range can vary just a little bit. But this is your serum or your blood potassium level. The best way to look at potassium, though, is not this. If this is skewed, you've got problems. If this is really low, you've got problems, and these things are already happening. These problems over here are already occurring. So you don't want to wait for a test like this. If you really suspect your potassium's low, you want to ask your doctor to run an RBC potassium level. This is a form of intracellular potassium measurement. So red blood cells, what that stands for. RBC potassium levels, a much more accurate way to try to assess potassium. So again, don't just rely on that serum level because your body does a really good job of keeping that level pretty stable. Okay, so let's talk about some of the symptoms. Before disease sets in, what are some of the symptoms that the potassium deficiency can create? I mentioned this a minute ago, but fatigue. Fatigue is a big one, and this is because your muscles require potassium to contract. Your brain requires potassium to think, right? So we get tired, we get brain fog. A big one of the early ones that I see is muscle weakness, muscle spasm. So if you have, another way to say this is cramps. If you're waking up with cramps, if you're having twitches, muscle twitches, involuntary, if your toes or your feet cramp up when you try to get in bed at night, you might have an issue with potassium. Now, other minerals, other electrolytes can do this too, which is why you really, if you're not sure, you really want to get clarity, in my opinion, through testings, because magnesium deficiency can cause cramping, calcium deficiency can cause cramping as well. Things like CoQ10 deficiency can cause cramping. So more than just potassium can create this, but this is actually a very common symptom. Irregular heartbeat as well. Again, magnesium can cause that irregular heartbeat, what some doctors refer to as arrhythmia. So you got to be careful not to just jump to the conclusion of potassium. You got to also consider that magnesium and calcium might be playing a role in these too. So I say that because those three minerals have a lot of overlap in terms of their deficiency symptoms. High blood pressure. I mentioned that earlier. I said high blood pressure. Again, high blood pressure can also be caused by magnesium and calcium deficiency. If you've been following me for any length of time, you may have heard me refer to what are called the DASH studies. DASH, that stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. So these are studies that have been ongoing. They're a massive group of studies that have been ongoing for decades now. And what these studies summarize, if you're trying to stop high blood pressure, from a diet perspective, there's two things that you have to make sure of. Is number one is that you're getting adequate potassium. K plus is potassium. That's an abbreviation for potassium. You also make sure that you get adequate magnesium and adequate calcium. Those three, that's what the DASH studies. Again, decades worth of research show that these three minerals are critical for regulating blood pressure. Again, these three minerals, the reason I mentioned these other two tonight is because their symptoms overlap. The deficiency symptoms overlap. So this is one. Number one. Number two is don't eat processed foods. Because why? Because typically they're low in potassium, magnesium, and calcium, but they're also high in sodium. Salt. Okay, sodium chloride oftentimes, or high in MSG, which is a form of salt, right? And so too much of this type of salt and not enough of these types of mineral salts leads to an elevation in blood pressure. Again, we're talking about dietary approaches to stop high blood pressure. Potassium, very, very critical. Potassium deficiency can elevate your blood pressure. Now, I want to talk a little bit about a concept that I think is super important for you all to understand. So we know that potassium, if your potassium is low, it can increase your blood pressure. We said a minute ago it can increase your insulin, okay? It can increase your blood sugar or glucose. What do these three things have in common? These three things are all risk factors for heart disease. But what I really want you to understand is that if a doctor diagnoses you with increases in blood pressure, insulin resistance, and high blood sugar, what typically is going to happen is you're going to get a diuretic to lower your blood pressure. Depending on what stage of diabetes you're in, if you're really late stage, it actually can give you insulin. Oftentimes, will give you insulin. Remember, too much insulin will lower your potassium. But they oftentimes will give you, with this combination, they'll put you on a statin, which is a drug that lowers cholesterol. A lot of times they'll put you on a blood sugar drug, typically like metformin, very common one. Okay, and this is a very common combination that I see when people come to see me. So diuretic, statin, metformin. Now the diuretic will deplete potassium, calcium, and magnesium. So that's important to understand that diuretic can do that. The statin will lead to reduction in CoQ10. Okay, and the metformin will cause CoQ10 and B12 and folate deficiencies. Now, why do I point all this out? Because, again, this one mineral can cause these three problems that then can lead to these three classes of medications that then can lead to depletion of these key nutrients. When you start depleting, again, as I mentioned, the diuretic depletes potassium earlier. But when you deplete potassium, CoQ10, B12, folate, what are you actually doing? You're increasing your risk for the development of heart disease. So the very combination of medicines that your doctor's got you taking is a cocktail that spells disaster for long-term risk for cardiovascular disease, but you're being told that you need to be on these medications to prevent heart disease. And I say that because this is so common. This is actually one of the most common trifectas or trios of drugs, again, that I see in people. So I think it's important for you to understand that if you're here, again, if you're here and nobody's ever measured your potassium, this is really, before you jump to these things, ask your doctor to measure your potassium, your intracellular potassium, your red blood cell potassium. Otherwise, you might end up on all these things, and it may increase your risk for developing heart disease in a different way. And you don't want to trade one risk for heart disease for multiple others through nutritional deficiency. Okay, other symptoms of potassium deficiency: bloating and constipation, numbness and tingling. Potassium deficiency can cause a sense of neuropathy, numbness and tingling. Typically this for potassium occurs in your hands, in your legs and feet. It can create, especially if it goes on long enough. So I mentioned earlier muscle weakness, muscle spasm, or cramps, but it can also cause muscle paralysis. Now, this is super important because some of the muscles help your ribs lift, right? We call those the breathing accessory muscles. These muscles help you to lift your rib cage so that you can fill your lungs with air. So if you're developing muscular paralysis, one of the earlier signs of muscular paralysis is going to be shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, because it's, again, not pure paralysis, but it's a reduction or a weakness in those accessory breathing muscles. And so you think maybe you're anemic now. So this is where sometimes potassium deficiency can be misconstrued for anemia, because anemia, like iron deficiency, can also cause a shortness of breath or trouble breathing. So potassium does it not so much through red blood cells and oxygen, but it does so through the weakness that evolves and develops in the respiratory muscles, the muscles that help you breathe. So difficulty breathing can be a sign of potassium deficiency. And then mood swings. Remember, potassium's an electrolyte. It allows your nerves in your head, in your brain, to communicate with each other. It allows those same nerves to communicate with your spinal cord. And so mood swings is a very common symptom of potassium deficiency as well. Okay, so now let's talk about diseases, like full-blown diseases that we know can result as a result of potassium deficiency. And one of them is kidney stones. So if you've ever been diagnosed with a kidney stone, ask your doctor, measure potassium. Let's change our color here. Let's get something a little bit easier to read. So measure that potassium. If you've ever been diagnosed with kidney stones, you got to make sure that your potassium levels are normal. Heart disease, again, this could be heart arrhythmias, heart palpitations. It could also be elevations in blood pressure, which is a form many people consider to be a form of heart disease. Vasoconstriction of your blood vessels, they don't dilate very well. That's why the pressure goes up. Well, that can reduce your oxygen to your other tissues and lead to all types of problems. Bone loss is associated, or osteoporosis is associated with long-term potassium deficiency. Stroke can be a condition caused by potassium deficiency. This is what I was saying earlier, is that this is one of the nutrients, right? It's essential, meaning your body can't produce it. You have to eat it. You have to get enough in your diet. And when you're too low over time, it can kill you, right? And the way it kills you, death, right, is through, these are some of those mechanisms. So type 2 diabetes, again, what did we say earlier? We said that potassium could reduce your insulin. That could lead to the doctor wanting to put you on a diabetic medication that can actually have side effects nutritionally that increase your risk for the development of heart disease. And so then we also have a disease called encephalopathy, which is a swelling of the brain, and mental dysfunction or mental disorders. Now, what's interesting here, mental disorders, something like depression is an example, or bipolar. With these types of diseases, there are certain meds that doctors will prescribe, certain antipsychotic meds or certain medications, emotional medications, that lead to increase in blood sugar, right, that affect your potassium as well. So a lot of your antipsychotic medications will actually contribute to diabetes and again, increase your blood sugar, thus increasing your risk for the development of a potassium deficiency. So you got to be careful there. So those of you listening to this that are on these medications, again, don't stop your medicines. That's the conversation that you need to have with your prescribing doctor. What you really want to do is you want to go in there armed with this information so that you can ask for the right type of testing. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the different potential for medications, but this is a list. You can see here, this is a list of some of the medications that we're absolutely certain will cause potassium deficiency. And one is steroids. So corticosteroids, cortisol, corticosteroids will deplete potassium. One of the reasons why we know this is because so many people go on corticosteroids to block inflammation, and we'll see their potassium levels start to drop. So if you've ever suffered or struggled with chronic inflammation, chronic autoimmune disease, chronic pain, and your doctors have you on a corticosteroid, something like prednisone or methylprednisone, etc., you know that one of the side effects is potassium depletion. Now, on the same token, if you have intense stress in your life, so if you're under a lot of stress, your body is going to produce cortisol more cortisol of your own. And this is one of the reasons why chronic stress will also deplete potassium levels. So again, chronic stress causes your body to make the hormone that lowers potassium, but taking the synthetic versions of that same hormone will also deplete potassium levels. So be aware of that, because again, if you're taking medicine or if you're chronically stressed, you need to consider having your potassium monitored or measured to see whether or not it's something that is going to be needed to be elevated. Aspirin can deplete. Aspirin and other NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications, can deplete potassium, and one of the ways is through damage to your kidney, but also to your intestine. Inflammation in your intestine depletes your body's ability to...
Your brain has automated walking so completely that...
Benefits of antipsychotics.
Benefits of antipsychotics.
Antipsychotics are a class of drugs primarily used to manage the symptoms of psychosis. They are most commonly used to treat schizophrenia, but have indications for the treatment of several conditions. There are many different antipsychotic medications, and although there are some variations in their mechanisms, almost all antipsychotics decrease dopamine activity, which is thought to be effective because increased dopamine activity may contribute to the symptoms of psychosis. The first antipsychotics discovered, which are sometimes referred to as first-generation antipsychotics, include drugs such as chlorpromazine and haloperidol. Their primary mechanism of action is to act as antagonists at a type of dopamine receptor called the D2 receptor, which means they block activity at these receptors and thus reduce dopamine signaling overall. A more recently developed group of drugs is sometimes called second-generation antipsychotics. These include risperidone, quetiapine, and others. Although drugs in this class have more varied mechanisms, most block dopamine and serotonin receptors. This serotonin receptor antagonism may be beneficial both for its direct effects on psychotic symptoms and because of serotonin's role in modulating dopamine release, which might influence symptoms and reduce side effects caused by dopamine antagonism. Other drugs in this class have slightly different mechanisms at dopamine and serotonin receptors, as well as actions at other neurotransmitter receptors. Recently, a new drug called xanomeline was developed. It primarily stimulates acetylcholine receptors, giving it a unique mechanism among antipsychotics. Antipsychotics are generally associated with movement-related side effects, such as Parkinsonism. The risk of significant movement-related side effects is lower with second-generation drugs, but it is still present. Other problematic side effects include weight gain, an increased risk of diabetes, and cardiovascular complications. While these cardiometabolic side effects can occur with any antipsychotic, they are more strongly linked to second-generation drugs.
If you want to get access to tonight's slideshow presentation, comment immune below and I'll send it to you right away. Welcome to Dr. Osborne's Zone. Look, if you struggle with an autoimmune diagnosis, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis, celiac disease, Crohn's, inflammatory bowel disease, autoimmune hepatitis, Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, whatever it is, if it's autoimmune disease, you're not going to want to miss the next 3 shows. Tonight is part 1 of gaming the system. Remember, the system for treating autoimmune disease has miserably failed us all, and I'm going to teach you how to game the system back and overcome autoimmune disease with simple, actionable steps you can starting tonight. You unlock this door with the key of compassion. Beyond it is another world, a world of science, a world of common sense, a world of sanity. You're moving into a land of both empathy and ethics, of nutritional knowledge and empowerment. You've just crossed over into Dr. Osborne's Zone. So welcome to a special 2-part series of the Dr. Osborne Zone. This is a series we're going to be discussing, which is an extension of the last 3 shows that we've done. So if you haven't watched How the System Has Failed You,
Are there health benefits to antipsychotics? Antipsychotics. Does the Bible say anything about waiting on Jesus?
I hope you'll stay connected with us during the week through our daily podcast, our YouTube channel, social media, and you can come visit us in person. We'd love to have you be a part of one of our services. I'd like to start with something funny. I heard about this minister that was driving down the road when he was pulled over by a policeman. The officer came to the window and smelled alcohol. He saw a thermos and said, "Sir, what are you drinking?" The minister said, "Just water, officer." He asked to see the thermos. He took one sniff and said, "Smells like wine to me." The minister said, "What do you know? Jesus did it again." Say it like you mean it. This is the Bible. I am what it says I am. I have what it says I have. I can do what it says I can do. Today I will be taught the Word of God. I boldly confess. My mind is alert. My heart is receptive. I will never be the same. In Jesus' name. God bless you. I want to talk to you today about trusting while you're waiting. We all have times where we feel stuck, not making progress in our career, haven't met the right person, problem is not turning around. It's easy to live frustrated, wondering why we can't move forward, stressed because we're stagnant. But there are seeds
손가락 아파서 일찍 방송 끝낼게요.